New details about the death of Food Network star Anne Burrell. Reports now say it was her.
You knew her for the spiky blonde hair, that booming, infectious laugh, and a love for food that was just impossible to ignore. Anne Burrell was a rock star in the kitchen, a teacher to millions, and a total force of nature on our TV screens. For decades, she invited us into her world, spilling the secrets of a restaurant chef and proving that even the worst cooks in America could find their way around a stove. She built an entire empire on bold flavors and an even bolder personality. But the story of the fortunes she left behind, and the secrets it revealed? No one saw that coming. When the cameras finally stopped rolling, the full picture of Anne Burrell's life came into focus through her final act of generosity, a will that would leave her family, and the world, in tears. This is the story of the surprising fortune Anne Burrell built, and the emotional bombshells she had hidden in her final wishes. On June 17, 2025, the culinary world went silent. The news of Anne Burrell's death at just 55 years old was a shock to everyone. The official announcement mentioned a possible cardiac arrest, but the details surrounding her passing in her Brooklyn apartment left friends, family, and fans with so many unanswered questions. As tributes poured in from fellow chefs and her Food Network family, another story started to bubble to the surface, one held within the pages of her will. Her estate, valued at an estimated $4 million, wasn't just a pile of assets, it was one last, heartfelt letter to the world she had touched so deeply. And the contents of that letter would reveal a quiet mission and a depth of character that few, not even those closest to her, ever fully saw. To really get why her will was such a bombshell, you have to remember the Anne Burrell we all thought we knew. She wasn't just a chef, she was a phenomenon. Born in Cazenovia, New York, her love for cooking was sparked early on, inspired by her mom's home cooking and the charm of Julia Child on screen. She actually got a degree in English and communications at first, but the kitchen kept calling her back. So, she enrolled at the prestigious Culinary Institute of America, and that decision pretty much set the course for the rest of her life. Her journey was all about relentless hard work and just an insatiable hunger for knowledge. She sharpened her skills in the tough kitchens of Italy, diving deep into the rustic, soulful food that would become her signature. When she came back to New York, she worked with culinary legends like Lidia Bastianich at Felidia and became an executive chef at several top restaurants. For a while, she even taught at the Institute of Culinary Education, where old students remember her as this incredibly passionate teacher, a little preview of the mentor she'd become for millions. But it was TV that made her a household name. Her big break was as a sous chef for Mario Batali on Food Network's Iron Chef America. With her fiery energy and that unforgettable look, she was a natural star. In 2008, she got her own show, Secrets of a Restaurant Chef, which earned her Emmy nominations and a massive following. Then, in 2010, came Worst Cooks in America, the show that sealed her legacy. For more than a decade, she and her co-hosts took clueless contestants and turned them into cooks who could actually hold their own. Her tough love style was always balanced with real encouragement, showing she truly believed anyone could learn to cook if they just tried. On top of her TV success, she wrote 2 New York Times best-selling cookbooks, Cook Like a Rock Star and Own Your Kitchen, which helped home cooks everywhere feel more confident and creative. She was always popping up on shows like The Best Thing I Ever Ate and Chopped, and was competing at the highest level right up until the end on shows like House of Knives. Her public image was all about boundless energy, fierce talent, and a deep, contagious joy for food. She was, in every sense of the word, a rock star. Behind that larger-than-life personality was a sharp and hard-working professional who was quietly building a serious fortune. Anne Burrell's estimated net worth of $4 million at the time she passed was the result of a smart, diverse career that went way beyond her Food Network paycheck. It was a fortune earned through decades of hustle, smart choices, and an authentic brand that people just connected with. She had income coming from all over. The foundation, of course, was her long and successful run at Food Network. As the host of multiple hit shows, including the incredibly popular Worst Cooks in America, she brought in a hefty salary and royalties from reruns. Her two best-selling cookbooks were another huge source of income, selling for years after they first came out, but beyond media, Burrell was a pretty savvy investor. In 2019, she bought a loft in her beloved Brooklyn for $1.53 million. By 2025, its value had jumped to an estimated $2 million, proof of her great real estate instincts. She also gave the restaurant world a shot with Phil and Anne's Good Time Lounge. It didn't last long, but it showed she had that entrepreneurial fire. Brand deals and consulting gigs helped round out her portfolio. What most people didn't see was her deep commitment to philanthropy, which was a quiet but constant part of her life. She was a dedicated ambassador for the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, inspired by her nephew, and served on the advisory board for the Garden of Dreams Foundation. She also poured her support into food-based charities like City Harvest. This wasn't for show, it was just who she was, a value that would show up in the most profound way in her final wishes. She built her fortune not for flashy toys, but with a sense of purpose that would become crystal clear after she was gone. When the details of Anne Burrell's will started coming out, they painted a picture of a woman whose greatest passion wasn't just for cooking, but for nurturing the potential she saw in other people. Her $4 million estate wasn't mostly for her family. Instead, it was a carefully crafted plan to give back to the causes and communities she loved. It was this plan that brought her family to tears, not of sadness or anger, but of sheer awe at the size of her generosity. The heart of her will was a huge bequest meant to set up a culinary scholarship fund. And this wasn't just some generic donation. It was specifically designed to support aspiring chefs from marginalized communities, a cause she was quietly passionate about. The fund was set up to break down barriers in the food world, creating opportunities for women, LGBTQ+ individuals, and first-generation students who might not have had the chance otherwise. It was a reflection of her own journey and her desire to make the path a little easier for the people coming up behind her. But the will went even further, with surprises that were both deeply personal and incredibly generous. There were reports of significant funds set aside for former contestants, students, and mentors from her many years on television. These weren't just checks, many came with personal notes, offers of mentorship for their own culinary dreams, and even seed money for restaurants and food trucks. It was a final investment in the next generation of chefs. One last lesson from America's favorite culinary mentor. Her will also included major donations to charities she'd always supported, like animal shelters and No Kid Hungry. But maybe the most moving part was about her personal life. She reportedly left her Brooklyn loft not to be sold, but with the hope that it could become a culinary learning space, a place to archive her massive recipe collection and preserve her home kitchen for future generations to learn in. The rest of her assets went into a trust for her husband, Stuart Claxton, and her family, making sure they were taken care of while the bulk of her fortune went to her philanthropic mission. The scale and thoughtfulness of it all was overwhelming for her family. They were seeing a side of Anne that, while not surprising in its kindness, was just breathtaking in its scope. The tears they cried were tears of pride and love, for a woman who spent her life feeding people and whose final act was to create a legacy that would keep feeding dreams for years to come. And Burrell's story is such a powerful reminder that a legacy is about so much more than what you have, it's about what you give. Her final wishes have started a really important conversation about giving back and mentoring in the culinary world and everywhere else. What do you think of her incredible act of generosity? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're inspired by stories of people using their success to lift others up, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what's next. The news about Anne Burrell's will completely reframed her public image. She wasn't just the loud, funny chef with the spiky hair anymore. Now, she was seen as a quiet, game-changing philanthropist who used her fame to create real change. The emotional impact was huge. Stories started popping up from former contestants and students who had been touched by her generosity long before her passing, painting a picture of a woman who was constantly, and often privately, supporting the people around her, her family, especially her husband Stuart Claxton, whom she married in 2021, was now faced with the huge task of making her ambitious vision a reality. This meant working with organizations like the James Beard Foundation to manage the massive scholarship fund and trying to preserve her personal archives, just as she wanted. The weight of that responsibility was only matched by their deep respect for her plan. Their tears weren't just about the money, they were about the immense love and trust she had placed in them to carry her legacy forward. Food Network, her professional home for so long, honored her with tribute programming, airing some of her most memorable episodes and her final season of Worst Cooks in America. Betsy Ayala, the head of content at Warner Bros. Discovery, called her a one-of-a-kind talent whose passion was in everything she did. Colleagues like Robert Irvine and Alex Garnaschelli shared emotional tributes, remembering her not just as a tough competitor, but as a generous and supportive friend. Her death also led to a renewed interest in her work. Sales of her cookbooks reportedly shot up as fans wanted to reconnect with her voice and her recipes. The royalties from her TV shows and book sales now feed the very trust that funds her charitable work, creating a legacy of generosity that will sustain itself. Anne Burrell's legacy was no longer just about her skill in the kitchen, it was about her profound, lasting impact on the lives she touched, both on and off the screen. Anne Burrell lived her life out loud, with a passion as bold and unapologetic as her food. She taught millions that cooking isn't just about feeding yourself, it's about joy, connection, and empowerment. But her final chapter showed that her truest mission was even bigger. The $4 million fortune she left behind was proof of a lifetime of quiet generosity and a deep-seated desire to lift others up. Her will wasn't an ending, it was a beginning. It was the start of new careers for aspiring chefs, a lifeline for communities in need, and a permanent legacy of mentorship and love. The tears her family shed reflected what the whole world was realizing, and Burrell's greatest recipe wasn't for a dish, but for a life built on the radical idea that success is best when you share it. Her warmth, her spirit, and her boundless love, as her family so beautifully put it, will truly remain eternal.